What's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, joined week after week by my brother, Austin. What's up, dude? Welcome to episode number 71.
I was just thinking about it as I walked into my office. Like, man, this is my favorite time of the week. It's just a nice little break from all of life to talk about our two favorite things, Halloween and Halloween. Yeah, so good to be back for episode number 71. And we got a good one today, and we got a couple good things happening here coming up, man.
We do, yeah. So before we get into today's episode, and we'll be breaking down Halloween 2018 because it's a movie that you and I both love for many different reasons, and we have a lot of fans of that particular film who watch this podcast. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be breaking down each of the David Gordon Green films, and obviously starting this week with 2018, and next week will be Halloween Kills, followed by everyone's favorite, including our own Halloween Ends, to round things up. But before we get going, a couple really quick things. So, we have been very blessed with this podcast that we have had so many different people who have come out and supported us and, have given us words of encouragement at times when the podcast hasn't gone right or whatever it might be. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with this podcast is we're just trying to bring everybody who loves this franchise together. That's really what we're about. We want to be a home for people who love this franchise, who love Michael Myers, to come together and listen to two brothers talk about this stuff week after week. But we do have a friend of the show, Josh Allman. He's been on a couple times. He goes by the shape _NC on Instagram. Awesome dude, super good dude. Honestly, I love Josh. He's just such a cool guy. He just started a podcast. He just started his own Halloween podcast, and it is called, I want to make sure I get it right, the Halloween Franchise Replica Art Podcast. And what him and his co-host Danny are doing is they're literally talking about basically anything and everything that has to do with Michael Myers and cosplay and things like that. And, Josh has been a huge supporter of the show over the last year and a half that we've been doing this. And we want you guys to go check out that show. There are a couple episodes in right now, and it's fun stuff. It's really cool to kind of listen to other people talk about this and especially focus on like the cosplay thing, which Josh clearly knows what the hell he's doing because he's one of the best out there at working the Michael Myers cosplay. So you guys go check it out. It's on YouTube. You can check out their podcast. You can either go see, go check out Josh's Instagram page, the shape _NC, or go to YouTube and type in the Halloween Franchise Replica Art Podcast. I don't want to screw that up. So the Halloween Franchise Replica Art Podcast, and give those guys some love and support. Let them know that Blaine and Austin sent you. And once again, we're always here to support other people and what they want to do in this field and with this franchise. So go check that podcast out and give them some love. And then finally, we want to talk. It's been a while since we've done a live episode. It's been a long time, as a matter of fact, since we've done a live episode. And guess what? Many people have asked, and we listen. We're the people of our fans of the people of our fans.
We're people of the people.
We're the people of the people. This podcast, we're persons of the people. We're everything in between, and we're going to do another live show, July 12th, Live 75, our 75th episode. Holy cow. How did we get here? It's been a crazy ride, but here we are, almost 75 episodes in. So that's going to be 4 weeks from now, July 12th. The time on that will be 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll obviously provide more details, and we'll have all kinds of fun stuff planned for that episode. But we've done those live shows in the past. As a matter of fact, almost a year ago right now was when we did our live 25 episode. I think we did that. That was in July. And we're going to be doing it, obviously, again in July, 50 episodes later. So, yeah, July 12th, Live 75, Halloween Lives podcast with Blaine and Austin. Come join us. Say hi. I'm sure we'll be bringing some people on, having some fun, some laughs. We've had a lot of people actually request us to do another Hot Ones live episode, which I'm all for, to be honest with you. I don't know that we'll do it for Live 75, but I'm all for doing another Hot Wings episode. Or Hot Ones, I should say. Hot Ones.
I would do like episode 100 maybe, and we could skip a lot of the light ones and just go right to the shit that sucks. Yeah, I mean, we could definitely. I'm ready to put my body through that again. It was a lot of fun, and obviously, like Marie made that episode what it was. Yeah, what a great time, and yeah, I guess I'm down to do it again. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. I've seen the comments. People are ready for more fiery Duncan Brothers.
Yeah, I just got one today, or I just read one today. Somebody's like, "You guys got to do another Hot Ones episode. Eat more wings." And yeah, so that's awesome, and we appreciate obviously the support of the people who came and watched that episode. And that episode continues to get more and more views, and we'll definitely do something like that again in the future. But in the meantime, we are going to do that live 75 episode happening July 12th. So make sure you guys pay attention to the future shows, and we'll kind of make some more announcement on what that's going to look like. But here we are, episode 71, going to be breaking down the David Gordon Green 2018 film titled Halloween, which you and I have talked a lot about this. I kind of wish they had given it a different title because we already have, well, quite honestly, we have two other Halloweens because we have the 78, John Carpenter's 78, and Rob Zombie's remake from 2007. So calling another film Halloween kind of sucks. They gave the other two, films another word in the title with kills and ends. Kind of wish they had done the same thing, not to make it so confusing. But Austin, I want you to go back in your brain right now. Remember what you were doing, where you were, who you were with, whatever it might be, when you first heard that they were going to be making this film, and we didn't really know what it was going to be at the time. But what was going through your mind at that time when you heard that there was finally going to be a new Halloween movie that was being made? Before we knew anything about the trilogy, we just knew there was going to be a film made. Walk me through that.
Dude, I think I was still in high school, which is crazy to think about. I think I was a senior in high school because it probably came out in about 2016 when that news dropped. And it was, I believe they had announced right away that Jamie Lee Curtis was returning, and that it was going to be done by David Gordon Green and Danny McBride right off the bat. I remember our initial feelings were, what the hell is Danny McBride doing with the Halloween franchise? What does he have to do? Because at that time, I wasn't aware that he had done a lot of movies specifically with David Gordon Green. And outside of being this very funny guy, he is a great screenwriter, great director, great guy behind the camera. Probably more so than he is really in front of the camera. But I'm thinking, what is the guy from This Is the End doing with my beloved franchise? And it was super exciting for me because I was pretty young when the Rob Zombie movies dropped. Obviously, once they were on DVD and everything, I saw them, but wasn't able to get in the theater. I think even our mom and dad probably would have been like, Blaine, don't take Austin to the movies for this one. And so for me, I was super pumped that I was going to get a chance to see Michael on the big screen because I kind of didn't know when that was going to happen. Obviously there were talks of a remake after the Rob Zombie thing too. It's kind of whatever happens as soon as there's a lull in a franchise nowadays. And so for me, man, it was just really exciting that we were going to go back. He kind of knew it was likely going to be either after H2O or after H2 because that's where Jamie's story had left off. And eventually the news came out that it was after H1, but that's probably later down. How are you feeling? Do you remember anything about that announcement?
I do, and at the time, I was doing another podcast at that point with our cousin. Actually, we had this podcast called the Trick or Treat Cult Podcast, and we talked about all things horror and scary and whatever. Not necessarily focused directly on Halloween, although we did talk about Halloween a lot. And I remember us talking about that, and Jamie Lee Curtis being announced basically right away that she was coming back and she was going to star in it. And I remember Bloody Disgusting had the photo shoot of Jamie wearing like the blue button-down shirt and the Michael Myers mask, and she of course had the short gray hair, and I think it was like on like a setup where it looked like it was the Myers porch or something similar to that, right? And I remember being just incredibly excited for it because, yeah, we hadn't seen anything since the Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 came out, and nobody really knew where the franchise was going to go. And quite honestly, I always kind of assumed that there had been rumors at that time or just before that we were going to get like this Halloween 3D movie that was going to be a continuation of that storyline. And obviously, talking with Tyler Main, having Tyler on the show. And I've heard Scout Taylor Compton talk about this before as well. Like we came really damn close to seeing a third film from Rob Zombie. And it sounds like, if I remember correctly, Rob kind of was the one who pulled out of it because he was like, the network at the time with or the studios were going through a lot, and they had taken a lot of creative control away from Rob. And, he wanted to do certain things and they just weren't doing it. And they kind of all agreed like, hey, if Rob isn't directing this, we're not going to do it. So ultimately that obviously didn't end up happening, but that's really where we were at. So we had this lull, we had this weird sort of time where we didn't know, kind of very similar in a way to where we're at right now, right? With the just getting over the trilogy, although we know that there's this TV show that's supposedly happening. Hopefully it happens. But I mean, I can count on my hands that there's been a number of times since I've really been following this franchise closely, where it's been announced, hey, there's a new Halloween project in the works, and then they kind of just fizzle out, right? Hopefully that's not the case with the franchise or the TV series, because I think it's piggybacking off of what just has happened with the David Gordon Green films. But we're kind of in a very similar situation where we're riding the wave of what just happened, and hopefully, we don't get too far down the path without having something Halloween related. But I remember being very, very excited. And this was the only film in the trilogy that you and I did not see together at the time in the theater. I do remember texting you about it and being like, dude, you got to go see it. I want to talk to you about this. And I know I saw it on opening day. I think you saw it pretty close to opening day, but I don't think it was opening day, right?
Yeah, I think I saw it the day after opening day. I was in college when it dropped. And I only had one friend that was into horror movies that was like willing to, we had ramen money, and she was the only person that was willing to drop any ramen money to go see it. And we went and saw it together. And, I think she was more so just a horror fan. I was more into Michael Myers, but there were so many times during the movie, as we'll get into, where I was like, oh my God, it's that thing, like there were so many callbacks and good moments for the fans. But it was one of those things where it was like, probably as the credits were rolling, I was texting you my thoughts.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's get into it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of read the plot breakdown of this film. And we're just going to start and talking about everything and taking this deep dive into this because, and there's a lot to unpack here because this, once again, like you just mentioned, there was a lot of like callbacks to throwbacks or Easter eggs or whatever you want to call them to the 1978 film, and even brought in some others from other films that had happened along the way. So here we go. 40 years after the 1978 Haddonfield murders, true crime podcasters Aaron Corey and Dana Haynes traveled to Smith's Grove Sanitarium to interview Michael Myers, who was captured after Dr. Loomis shot him off the Doyle House balcony. Dr. Ranber Sartain, who has been treating Michael since Loomis's death, informs him that Michael is able to speak, but he chooses not to. Aaron approaches Michael and talks to him, but fails to get him to speak, even after showing him the mask and mentioning Laurie Strode, the sole survivor of the 1978 murders, causing the other patients to react. So this is the opening. Kind of a very cold opening. We get like, we just kind of come right into it. You get like that buzzer right away, like the of the, the doors opening and closing and whatever at Smith's Grove. And what I love about it is, I don't remember noticing this right away, but you can like see Michael sort of, moving about, but you don't ever really see it's Michael. And you didn't know it was Michael at the time when you first see this film. You don't know that's Michael, but you do see him. And then obviously, you see where Dana and Aaron are, they're there and they're on that big checkered floor thing. And we had seen a lot of shots of that, particularly that shot of Corey. Why do I keep calling him Corey? Aaron Corey holding that mask towards Michael. We saw like some shots of that before the film actually came out, and I think it may have even made it into the trailer initially. But yeah, this was a great scene, and like the buildup and the tension of when he's like, he's holding that mask, and I forget what is he yelling. He's like yelling something.
He's saying, "Say something."
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Say something. Yeah,
right. And it's like, why would he react to that? First off, why would Michael Myers react to that? And why did he get so angry? Why did he get so angry with him right away?
It's the first instance throughout the movie. It's kind of a weird thing that goes throughout the whole movie is other people trying to get Michael to speak. It happens several times throughout the movie. It becomes a plot point for Allison in the back of the cop car eventually. It's just a weird thing that I guess we haven't focused on or really talked about at any movie, why he's not speaking.
Right.
But yeah, he doesn't say anything.
Well, I also think it's really cool because this is the first opportunity that we get. We do see where these sort of images or shots were behind Michael, like the camera is behind Michael, and you see that he's an older guy. He's got gray hair, and you get the one shot where he kind of turns just very, very slightly. He sort of turns, and you get almost just like barely starting to get a profile view of him or shot of him, and he either doesn't move any farther, or the camera cuts away. I don't remember. But you're like putting together the pieces of like, okay, this dude he's not young buck Michael Myers anymore. He looks to be the age that Michael Myers would actually be if it were this, right? It's not some young strapping. And I mean, don't get me wrong, James Jude Courtney's in great shape, but he's like a 60-year-old dude. And I love that they went with that for Michael. And not only did the guy who played Michael Myers behind the mask do a great job as James Jude Courtney did, but he also got to play Michael without the mask on. And I think that's freaking cool as hell too.
Yeah, it was kind of a bold take at the time to be so upfront with kind of showing Michael's face. I mean, I've seen the behind the scenes photos, but you can basically make out what the most of his face is if you watch this trilogy. Mm-hmm. Even though you never get a clear shot of it outside of maybe the end of Ends. It was something that was never really done outside of the original Halloween. But I think it sets up an important tone that Michael he's a man. He's a man.
The one thing that frustrates me a little bit about this scene in particular is not only the screaming thing, but the fact that they have the original mask. Like, to me, that's a little ridiculous. It's a little far-fetched that they would just show up at the Haddonfield Sheriff's Department, or I think they say the district attorney or whoever it was, like, gave them the mask. Really? I mean, they're just going to give away like evidence to just a couple of podcasters from the UK and be like, "Hey, go ahead, take this and see what happens." Highly doubtful. I get it though; they had to get the mask back, and I do love the fact that they tried to. I mean, they did that. It's like supposed to be the mask that he wore in '78. It's now what he's wearing, just aged and fallen apart a little bit. So that part to me always seemed a little far fetched, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Moving on. So Aaron and Dana then go to interview Lori, who has spent the last 40 years dealing with PTSD and preparing for Michael's inevitable return. Her feelings have resulted in 2 failed marriages and losing custody of her daughter, Karen, at a young age, who would later have her own daughter, Allison, with their history inflicting stress on the family. Aaron and Dana tell Lori their interest in finding out why Michael committed the murders and ask her to meet with him in a final attempt to get him to speak before he is transferred to a maximum security prison. Lori declines. So here's the scene where we really get Lori's backstory. What has happened to Lori in the past 40 years? And we really realize, and you know it going into this because you see sort of the guarded, gated area that she lives in. She's not mentally stable, right? She's gone through a lot of shit. She is, she's obviously dealing with PTSD, and she has prepped herself to defend herself if Michael was to ever escape. But you get this whole backstory about how she's divorced twice, and she has this daughter who she lost custody of. And the podcasters know all about this when they go to interview Lori, and they offered her, I think it was $2,000, or I don't remember what they offered her, but they offered her money to speak. And she eventually ends up just being like, get out of my house and I'll take my money. So she doesn't give them a whole lot, but I think it's kind of an interesting idea that they want to actually get Lori and Michael to sit down face to face. And not that we would have probably ever seen that, but what an idea to take the kind of sole surviving final girl, if you will, and take her to meet her killer who is now incarcerated and get them to be face to face. Kind of an interesting idea.
I mean, it would have made for a hell of a podcast. A lot of these true crime podcasts, they're doing the same thing we're doing. They're just talking about it. These guys really went out there. Aaron and Dana really wanted to make some groundbreaking history, and do the face-to-face thing. It is a really cool scene. It's a good way to get Lori back involved. It's also cool the way she speaks of Michael. I think of this scene as like a really good basis for people that weren't necessarily so familiar with the other movies. And it's kind of more proof that, yeah, we're taking 2 through 8 out of the equation. We're taking the remakes out of the equation. I like that this is one of the only times in the franchise where Michael Myers is referred to as the Shape in this scene. And, I always think of that line where Laurie's like, Michael Myers is a man who needs to be understood. And I'm twice divorced, and I'm a freak or whatever she says to that point. It really is a great scene to introduce her. And clearly you're dealing with a different Laurie Strode than we've ever seen. This is the intro of Rambo Laurie. Will become very important to recognize that she is broken throughout the rest of the film. But yeah, good way to kind of show what's important to Laurie at this time and catch us up to speed with what she's been up to the last 40 years.
That's right. As patients are loaded onto a bus transport, Dr. Sartain insists on accompanying Michael. Later, the bus crashes in a ditch, the security guards are killed, and the inmates scatter about the road, allowing Michael to escape. Kevin and his father come across the bodies of the prisoners and guards. They separate, and the son runs back to the truck. Michael appears in the back seat, snaps Kevin's neck. The following morning on Halloween, Michael terrorizes Dana, alerting Aaron. Aaron hits Michael over the head with a crowbar before his head is thrown into the bathroom stall. Michael tosses the mortally wounded Aaron aside, breaks into the stall, and pins Dana against the wall, choking her until he breaks her neck, which kills her, all while Aaron is bleeding to death out on the side of his head. Michael recovers his mask, returning to Haddonfield. Lori learns about the crash and breaks into Karen's house to demonstrate her lack of security, causing an argument with Karen and her husband, Ray. So a lot happening here, right? So yep. Michael is transported. And the one thing that I will say is I love this scene where Lori is sitting outside of Smith's Grove and she's watching the inmates get on this bus, and she knows Michael's on this bus. And there's a really good song, a really awesome song, I can hear it in my head, where she's watching this and she sees that Michael is being transported away, and she's kind of like I'm losing control of this. Like I think you're meant to believe, and I think you get in one of the extended or cut scenes where she like puts the gun to her head or something, or she's holding the gun, and you're kind of like, you're thinking that maybe she's suicidal. And I think this is a great scene. I love that scene because you know something's about to go wrong too, right?
Yeah, no. And obviously we're in a Halloween movie. Something is about to go wrong. And it's the beginning of the movie makes you think that Sartain is going to be the new Loomis. And then there's even some comments about that, but Lori, for all intents and purposes, is the new Loomis. She's the only one that knows what's about to happen or what's really at stake here. And yeah, it is. Even in the book, it's more descriptive that was the plan. That was why she had a gun with her that night. And it's obviously really dark, but kind of a fitting conclusion to that point of mind where she was at that point in the film. it is the perfect way to get Michael back. I mean, that this whole couple of scenes here is just the Michael we know slowly getting pieced together, because then you move on to the bathroom scene with Dana and Corey or Aaron. Now you got me.
I know. Corey Cunningham, Aaron Corey.
He's later. We'll talk about him in 2 videos.
We had to mention him.
It would have made sense for him to be in this movie.
Yes, it would have. We should have seen Corey Cunningham in this movie. You're right.
Would have made a lot more sense than whatever.
Yeah,
would have been a good character. But it's it was a really cool scene. I think that was one that they showed in the trailers, him dropping the teeth over the stall, which is obviously, this whole scene is a very good callback to Halloween H2O.
Yes.
And one of the best scenes in that movie, one of the best scenes in this movie. Something about Michael in a bathroom, man. Just the stakes are higher. The part that really hits me is when Dana hits her head on the bottom of that porcelain toilet seat. Dude, there's a perfect like Foley sound effect, and that would hurt like crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite scenes. I think seeing Aaron with his like bloody face in the mirror. It's like these two were the only two that really could have stopped now what was about to happen. And, it all leads to Michael putting on the mask and closing the trunk and giving us that first shot of him in the rear view mirror. And chills went through my body at that time. I was like, my boy is back. That was the moment I was waiting to see.
I still stand by the fact that I wish we wouldn't have seen the mask that early.
Mm-hmm.
I would like him wearing the mask that early, because you think about it, then really the next scene that we get is the extended scene of him on Halloween night. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but I just would have loved to have seen that be maybe a little bit more hidden. Like maybe we would have seen it through the reflection off the glass of the back of the car, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like I wish we would have maybe not gotten like the full on shot of him putting that mask on. And for some reason that shot has always bothered me, because he looks really thick in that shot. I don't know why. Like he looks just like built like a brick shithouse, and the mask looks really wide. I don't know why that shot has always bothered me. And it's yes, it's great to finally see Michael get the mask back on, and I get the effect of that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, here we go. He's back. He's got his mask back. But that scene has always bothered me for some reason. Let's talk very briefly about like the escape scene. Obviously, once again, a callback to 78, where you see all the inmates walking around on the road. Very cool. And how about the fact that he murders a kid in this scene? Like, he's never done that before. That's a whole nother brutality level that we've never seen in Michael Myers, where, his dad gets killed, and then the kid goes and he ends up shooting Sartain, who's still alive on the bus. And Sartain's asking, did he escape, or did it escape? Or he says something like that. This kid ends up running back to the truck, and Michael, once again, call back to 78, sits up in the back seat, and kills this kid like he did with Annie in 78, chokes him out same exact way. And you kind of get a very similar shot where it's like kind of fogged up and stuff. And, like, dude, he killed a kid, which it's crazy. And you think he's going to do it again down the road in this film.
Yeah.
So those are all, pretty crazy scenes. Beginning that night, Michael wanders Haddonfield and begins to kill innocent victims. He stalks a woman before bludgeoning her with a hammer. Moving to another house, he finds another woman and stabs a knife directly through her throat. Meanwhile, Allison is at a party with her friends and receives a call from her friend Vicky, inviting her to come over. Once Julian, the boy she is babysitting, falls asleep and her boyfriend Dave arrives. Allison gets into a altercation with her boyfriend Cameron, who throws her phone just as Laurie's calling to warn her to go home. At Julian's house, Vicky and Julian talk back and forth before she tucks him into bed. Dave arrives and the two of them cuddle while Julian screams, allowing Dave to sneak outside to smoke while Vicky is tucking him back into bed. Michael, who has been hiding in Julian's closet, fatally stabs Vicky as she sacrifices herself herself to protect the boy. Julian flees as Michael kills Dave. Lori, patrolling the streets in her truck, hears the dispatch call on her CB radio and hurries to the house where Sheriff Frank Hawkins is investigating and finds Dave and Vicky's bodies. Lori and Hawkins patrol behind the neighboring houses and find Michael. Lori shoots him, but as she turns the corner, Michael is gone. A deputy arrives with Dr. Sartain, and Lori and Hawkins learn that learns that he is Michael's new psychiatrist. Lori tells Hawkins that she has prayed for Michael's escape so that she could kill him. So once again, a lot to go through here. But let's start out by talking about this extended scene. What do we always call this thing? I don't remember what we necessarily call it, but
I believe the track, it's The Shape Returns, but I believe at some point, or it might just be the YouTube clip, is titled Michael's Rampage. And that's my favorite clip of the entire franchise. I mean, when I saw that for the first time in the theaters, it was like, holy shit, this is the best. I mean, it's something that, it's a callback to the original Halloween, the very first scene we ever see. Where it just continues and continues, and it was so well done. You really get a sense for who Michael is, and it starts with him bumping into the kid, and he just makes his way, absolutely having a rampage through Haddonfield. There's a great shot where you see him walk down the side of a house, and then, or no, I believe, does the shadow come first, and then Michael, or is it the reverse?
I think it's the shadow first. I think you see the shadow and then you see Mike. I don't remember.
Either way, there's this larger than life shadow of Michael, and it's just a great shot of almost like an angel of death coming through the town of Haddonfield. And like I said, it's my favorite scene in the entire franchise. Say what you want about the movie, I will never forget seeing that for the first time. The theme is perfect. This is like the first time in the movie where you really get like a true John Carpenter score. I mean, everything kind of felt a little Blumhouse to me before that moment. And that was one of the songs that they released before, which we've talked about. Maybe that could have not been a single and just saved that big moment for the screen. But it is one of the best scenes in the franchise, if not the best, and just sets the pace for the rest of the film.
Absolutely, and I agree that whole scene it's perfect. I mean, the lighting, the cinematography, it makes you feel like it's Halloween night. There's like kids screaming in the background, trick or treat. I mean, it's so good. But yeah, you get obviously a lot of stuff happens here. You get the fight between Allison and Cameron, because Cameron's making out with some chick at the Halloween party. She storms off. He ends up throwing her phone into like a thing of cheese, which is like a total douche move. And for that reason, we get excited that he gets killed and Halloween Kills. Getting a little ahead of myself. By the way, we probably should have put a huge spoiler warning on this episode. I can't imagine,
if you're here already, get the hell out of town.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's too many people who have not seen this film, but spoiler warning if you haven't, because you're going to learn everything about it at this point. But anyway, so yeah, you get a lot of this stuff happening. You get the whole interaction between Vicky and Julian. Love both of these characters. I really didn't like seeing Vicky die so early. She was a great character. I really liked her. And obviously Julian is like, as we've talked about, every kid in this franchise or every kid in this trilogy is an asshole. Julian is an asshole, but he's like a funny asshole. He's really he's a lovable kid. He's enjoyable. And I loved sort of the dynamic and chemistry between these two on screen, because you kind of you get the fact that they're playing with each other a little bit. And then you get this you're the worst babysitter I've ever had, and you're the worst kid I've ever babysat. And then she's finally like, you're actually my favorite kid to babysit, or whatever she says. And but you get that the scene where she gets killed, Michael's hiding in the closet, and once again she sort of sacrifices herself so that Julian can get away. I will say, and talking about that scene, that extended long scene, the Michael's rampage scene, and this death of Vicky, we saw both of these basically before the film ever came out. Like we saw this stuff in the trailer, like the when she goes and like slams the door and it doesn't close, and then she slams it again, it doesn't close, and then she opens it up and there's Michael. Like we saw these scenes before the film actually came out, and I know we've mentioned that in the past that they released way too much in the trailer of this film. And I think that's why when I first saw it, I was a little disappointed because I was like, wow, they sort of, blew their load, for lack of a better term, before they needed to, because they showed just so much shit in this, in the trailer before we actually got the film. Anyway, we finally get sort of the first time that Laurie and Michael end up kind of, I don't want to say coming face to face, but she sees him, she shoots him, he is hit by this bullet and doesn't really even react. You also see the shot that happens before that, I believe, where she looks up into the house and she sees Michael standing in the window. She shoots just into somebody's freaking house. She just fires off around into somebody's house. The window shatters and it ends up that you're seeing this reflection of Michael in a mirror. That was actually Nick Castle in that scene, which is super cool that we got to see him return to play the Shape once again. But then you get this whole discussion between Hawkins and Laurie where she's like, I've prayed for this night. I've waited for him. He's waited for me. I prayed for this night. And he's like, why in the hell would you do that? And she's like, so that I could kill him, so that he could escape and I could kill him. And this is when, in my mind, this is like psycho Laurie. This is when you're like, damn, this girl is not right in the head. Like she's literally, living her life for this moment to stalk this dude and hunt him down, because she sort of had this, I guess, premonition or just this belief that he was always going to come back. What's interesting is that he didn't come back for her. Like if Laurie Strode wasn't in this film, Michael still comes back. Michael had no intention of like actually hunting her down. It became that way because they came face to face and he was kind of like, what? Stop getting in my way. Right. I mean, if you keep getting in my way, I'm going to come after you. And that's eventually what ends up happening. But take Laurie Strode out of this film, Michael still comes back to Haddonfield because it's his hometown. He's coming back to kill and do what he needs to do. And you see a lot more as we get into kills of just sort of his path and what he's doing and where he's going. But yeah, you could take Laurie Strode out of this film and Michael's still coming back.
It's one of my big problems with the movie is that it is pitched as, the ultimate Laurie Strode and everything's kind of leading to a final battle between the two. But there's no skin in the game, I guess, with them not being brother and sister.
Yeah.
As much as I love the idea of taking it back just to the original film, it does kind of negate some of the importance of having Laurie Strode in the movie at all. And it's been one of my biggest problems with Halloween 2018 kills and ends. Both times the two come face to face are more so because Michael was led there, not that Michael was truly hunting Laurie. Right. And that hunt piece has been it was a huge piece of 2. It was a huge piece of H2O. And I guess Halloween Resurrection. And yeah, it does kind of remove some of the gravity of the two being back together.
It does. And you're right. I mean, yeah, if separating them as brother and sister, that's kind of what we get. Like we don't, there's no drive for all we know, he's never even thinking about Laurie Strode again. Like, no. Where she spent her life sort of like living again for this night. He's been living for this night, but to escape and just come back and do what he does, where she's been focused strictly on, killing him. So Allison leaves her boyfriend at the party and allows her friend Oscar to walk her home. Allison rejects his advances and Oscar sits behind, spotting Michael watching him. Oscar tries to escape, but is caught on a fence and Michael stabs and then impales him. Allison is chased by Michael before finding refuge in a neighboring home. Laurie, Karen, and Ray arrive at Laurie's fortified home and wait for Allison to arrive as 2 officers are posted outside the house in their squad car. Hawkins and Dr. Sartain search for Michael and in turn find Allison. Finding Michael, Hawkins runs him over with the police SUV and gets out of the vehicle to shoot Michael at point-blank range despite Dr. Sartain's protests. I'm going to pause there because there's more to that scene, but I want to go back because probably one of my top 5 favorite scenes in the entire franchise is the the Shape hunts Allison scene with Oscar, and it starts from the very beginning with just those two walking home from the party. He's drunk and she's not, and he's sort of like, trying to basically take advantage of the opportunity that she just broke up with her boyfriend, and he's like, all right, I'm going to make my move. And she doesn't want anything to do with that, and she leaves him on the ground in this backyard. And it's the Elrod residence, which once again is a throwback to Halloween 2. And so he sees Michael in the backyard, the backyard spotlight, or whatever you want to call it, the yard light,
like a motion
sensor light keeps turning on and off, and this dude who he thinks is Mr. Elrod, who we know is not Mr. Elrod, it's Michael Myers, keeps coming closer and keeps moving around until the light comes on and he's there and he's stabbing him. And whatever, you get Oscar runs out and climbs up this fence, and he slips and falls, and he takes that rod right through the bottom of his chin or his face, and he ends up hanging there. Allison has heard him screaming. She comes running back, finds Oscar hanging there. Michael sort of steps around the corner on the other side, and there he is. They have come face to face. And I don't know that she necessarily knows that that's Michael Myers in that moment, but she knows it's a dude who just killed her friend, and she takes off running. We get that awesome scene, or that awesome song. Just a great scene.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times, and this is genuinely how I felt. I kept watching this movie, kind of waiting for the moment where it really felt like I was watching another Halloween film and not kind of a new artist's rendition of the characters. Right. At first, I thought my oh shit moment was when he puts the mask on. This was the oh shit moment, and I've talked about it before. That's when the score picks up. You've got kind of our new final girl running in the streets, and Michael is chasing her. It's classic Halloween. Probably the best example of classic Halloween that you're going to get in this trilogy is this right here. And it was done just so well. And real quick, I love the line that Oscar says to Michael, thinking he's Mr. Elrod. You ever wanted a girl and you just couldn't get her, or something like that? What a genius, ironic line to have Oscar say to Michael at that point. And it was just so well done. That whole scene is A++.
When I saw it in the theater, I remember up until that point, I was kind of like, and I've talked about this. The first time I saw 2018 in the theater, I walked away from it being super disappointed. I was not very happy. And I remember having to hold that back and share that with you once you finally saw it. But I just remember being like, God damn, that was, I just expected more. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that some plot holes in the storyline that I didn't necessarily care for, the fact that I had seen a whole bunch of it already in the trailers and scenes that they had already released. But I do remember this scene specifically and being like, okay, he's back. He's back. This is what I've been waiting for. And still, when I watch this film to this day, and though I like it a lot more now, and it's obviously risen far in my ranking when it comes to this franchise, that scene is like, it stops me in my tracks. Like whatever I'm doing when I watch that movie, that scene in particular, I'm doing nothing other than focusing on the TV because it's just so freaking cool. Just very good. We get where Dr. Sartain and Hawkins are driving around, and he hits them. And this is where I'm going to read the next paragraph. And this is where some things that I really hate about this film to this day happen.
Yeah.
So Lori alerts Karen. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, here we go. Dr. Sartain stabs Hawkins in the throat with a blade hidden inside of a pen and kills him before taking Michael's mask and putting it on. We know he doesn't kill him, but let's just stop here for a second.
Yeah.
Worst scene maybe in the entire franchise right here for me.
What is he,
hate
fucking
this scene.
James Bond? Why does he have a pen that turns into a blade?
Yeah. Dude, this was so disappointing. When this happened, I remember sitting there in the theater And when you see that shot basically being filmed through like the back seat of the car and you see him stand up with the mask on and the headlights, I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? No, you don't put that mask on anybody else. What are you doing? Nobody should even hold that mask, let alone put it on. I hate that scene. I hate it. And to your point, like, who the hell has a freaking pen that's a knife pen? Like, especially a doctor? Like, what are you, nuts? You know, I hate that scene with a passion. Absolutely hate that scene.
Yeah, it to me, I mean, it was the same way. It felt sacrilegious to see this character who I didn't care for from the very first scene in the movie, right, put on the mask, because I was like, oh, why are we doing this in the third act of the movie? Like, we're just getting into, you know, like I said, we had just gotten in the moment where we were like, oh, this is what we came for. And then it's just the momentum is killed by this stupid ass decision to I don't know. It makes sense why Sartain's character existed. Maybe we could have condensed it to just him being insane and getting Michael out in the escape, but hated this scene.
Hated it. Dr. Sartain loads Michael into the back of the vehicle with Allison and drives to Laurie's house, intent on reuniting them. Michael regains consciousness and reclaims his mask, and Allison informs Dr. Sartain that Michael spoke to her. Distracted by demanding to know what Michael said, Michael breaks through the security barrier, forces Dr. Sartain out of the vehicle, and stomps on his head as Allison flees on foot. Ray steps outside to offer coffee to the police officers stationed outside and finds them dead. Michael appears behind Ray and strangles him. So once again, continuing on with this terrible scene with Dr. Sartain, he loads this like 200-pound dude into the back of the squad car by himself. Like, Dr. Sartain isn't exactly a spring chicken, and James Jude Courtney isn't exactly a small dude. So, or Michael Myers, whatever. Like, those are two things that just don't go together. And the fact that he gets them loaded into this squad car, and there's this whole conversation between Allison and Dr. Sartain, terrible. I like that, like 7 minutes of that movie. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But so yeah, Michael ends up basically at Laurie's house at this point, and you know that sort of final showdown, or what we believe to be a final showdown, is coming. As you know, Allison escapes, Michael is there, and you know, we get where he murdered these two police officers. Ray, the dad, he comes out to investigate. He gets strangled by those two that set of bells or whatever it is, which is kind of cool. Like,
it's cool. I don't know what the bells really did, but yeah, they're cool.
Yeah. So Laurie alerts Karen to Michael's arrival and sends her into the hidden safe room. Michael attempts to enter the house. In the process, Laurie shoots two of Michael's fingers off. Allison arrives as Laurie and Michael stab each other and witness Laurie fall from the balcony. When he investigates, Laurie is gone, and Allison makes her way into the safe room with Karen, who alerts Michael. As he appears, Karen shoots him with a rifle and stuns him. Laurie appears from the shadows and attacks Michael, sending him tumbling down the steps into the safe room. Karen and Allison leave the safe room, but Michael regains consciousness and grabs Karen's ankle. Allison stabs Michael with his own knife, and the two escape for the room. Laurie flips a switch, and metal bars spring into place, barricading the exit and trapping Michael in the safe room as it fills with gas. Laurie lights a flare and tosses it through the bars, setting the room and Michael ablaze. So let's go back just a little bit. The scene where Michael tries to break into the house and Laurie is at the door and she shoots his hand and blows his fingers off. That was like an oh shit moment for me, because Michael's a man. In this, he's a man, and he's not some supernatural figure in my mind. Getting your fingers blown off, you're not coming back from that. Like, he's now going to be walking around missing two fingers. And we've never seen Michael like wounded in that way before. We've seen him shot, but he never really is fazed by that. He gets his freaking hand blown in half basically in this. And I thought that was a really cool thing that they did. And I was immediately like, if they do make more of these films, how the hell are they going to counteract this, that Michael just lost two of his fingers?
Yeah, that was kind of my initial thought too, was just continuity wise. you just made it a big problem for your video effects editors
Right.
and makeup artists for whatever happens in the future. But yeah, it was really nice to see, like, oh, this is a legitimate fight. Michael's not going to come out of this unscathed. He just lost half his hand.
Right.
And like you were saying, we had never seen him get injured like that. So yeah, love that shot. Love it's almost Night of the Living Dead-ish with him busting through the wall. And there's so many great scenes inside the house with Michael walking above them looking up. I mean, you really get a lot of suspense here. My only problem with how this movie ends is just the ridiculous MacGyver house that Laurie has found herself in and built with all these spring booby traps. It's ridiculous, but understand, that this movie was not set up to be the beginning of a trilogy. This was going to be a standalone movie, but it did really well. So they had to give, as much of a fitting conclusion as you could to Michael and make you go, oh yeah, he's for sure dead. With the trap.
I agree. I kind of wish they had ended it differently. I don't mind like the fire death or him being trapped in the basement, but I wish there would have been even if somehow they had the opening in the floor and she like slid that thing back over top and he just couldn't get out. Like he was trapped in the basement. Like I would have been okay with that, but like the bars springing into place, that was just, it was ridiculous in my mind. And I agree. I could have lived without that. But we see the house start burning and Michael is stuck in it. And you get this really great shot where we are looking down at Michael and he's staring up and the fire is just building around him. And I remember watching it, and in a way, as much as you can have sympathy for somebody like that, I had sympathy for Michael in that moment because it was like he was done. He was literally cooked. Like he knew he was done. He lost, and the girl, Laurie Strode won. And then you get this shot later on where you just see the fire, burning out of control in the basement and kind of rolling up the stairs, and he's not there anymore. And you assume, well, he's burned up, he's dead. Again, I don't mind the fire. I don't like the booby trap kind of thing. But finally, Laurie, Karen, and Allison escape as the house becomes engulfed in flames and hitch a ride in the back of a pickup truck coming down the road. The house is engulfed in flames and Michael is nowhere to be seen. The three women embrace as they are taken to safety. So we get this sort of final shot of Allison holding the knife. I still don't know that I necessarily know what the point of that shot was, because there was a part of me that was very confused. Like, is Allison going to be the next killer or what? Now, obviously, as we get into Halloween Kills, you see that knife kind of continue on and it gets packaged up and rolled up into some clothes and all that. Like, she ends up, I think, leaving it with Laurie in the hospital. There's this whole thing with the knife later on. But in that moment, like if that had been the end of the film or the franchise, I would have been like, what was with the shot of the knife at the end? That was just odd. It was just really strange.
It was very much insinuating that Allison was going to be the next killer. And I think that was a really tough thing to walk away from that movie on, because you did get that great shot of Michael. If that's how Michael's going to die, staring down his victim, not caring about himself at all, just looking at Laurie and her next of kin while burning alive, badass way to die, badass way to end the movie. And then, it was just kind of this weird freeze frame, zoom in thing that happened at the end. Almost like they didn't really anticipate doing it until they got in the editing room floor. Not a fan.
I'm not either because that's the ending of the film. You get the credits and then we get this surprise at the end where you get Michael breathing. And I remember in that moment, I was with our cousin and I saw it in the theater. I remember looking at him and being like, oh dude, this ain't the end. That Michael is living, and I had already read that people were like, you got to stay till the end. You got to stay till the credits are over. You got to stay. So I didn't know what was going to happen, but just when they had that breathing of Michael behind the mask, it was like, okay, all right, we're going to get more Michael. And that obviously made me happy, but overall, I love this film. It when I first saw it, to me, it was disappointing.
Yep.
But in the years since, I mean, this film's been out now for 6 years almost. In the years since, I've grown to love this film more and more. I don't remember exactly where it lands for me in my ranking that I made just this past, I guess it would have been November. But it's for sure right in the middle for me. And it's a film that I love and I enjoy watching now. And it brings back a lot of just fun memories, because I wish at that time we had started this podcast. I wish we had been able to go through 2 more films and talk about this as the things, as we learn more about these films, and this channel could have grown with that. But, for me, this film is a solid, I'm going to give it, like, if we're talking 10 stars here, I'm going to give it a 7.5, possibly an 8. That's sort of where it lands for me in particular.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 8 peanut butter on my penises out of 10 as well, man.
Such a terrible line. Why would they ever put that in there? That was freaking horrible.
So dumb.
That was the shitty writing. That was the shitty writing that we got randomly like sprinkled in, especially heavily sprinkled in Kills, but that we got just sprinkled in like where, I just hate that line.
Yeah, it's for a film that has a lot of good like real human interaction writing. Like I think the kid and his dad on the night of Michael's escape talking like, hey, I don't need to go hunting all the time. I kind of like dancing. And the dad's like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
But like, it's a cool interaction between the dad and kid there, where it's like the dad's a pretty accepting father that like, yeah, his kid's not going to want to do what you do, but like, he's still a good kid, whatever. Like that kind of moment, I was like, oh, wow, the screenwriting is really great. Then you get some moments like that. And clearly what happens in Halloween Kills, which we will get into next week, will be a different story. But yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10, man. It's really grown on me. We both walked out of that movie theater disappointed with what we got. And I don't think it's because Halloween Kills really showed me how rough that idea can get. Because at the end of the day, I don't think my score for Kills is going to be extremely low. But more so just like as I thought about it and as you compare it, man, to the majority of the sequels in this franchise, it's just a better movie all around.
For sure.
Than most of what we've gotten. Nostalgia is a huge piece for everybody in this franchise, for everybody who loves this franchise. Take the nostalgia goggles off a bit. This is a solid horror movie, a solid Michael Myers movie. And I think it's like right up there. 8 out of 10 is an 80%. I'd give this movie a B, man.
Yeah, I agree. And you bring up a really good point. Like the reason I like some of these other films so much is it's just nostalgic for me. But is this, a better film in general? Yes, it is. It's a better film, hands down, night and day difference of a lot of the films that we got before this, but it doesn't have that nostalgic piece. And it will one day, but it doesn't at this point in time. But yeah, I'm at a solid 7.5, so 75% for me, which is this, it's a C. That's C plus, I guess. I'm bordering on a C plus, B minus. That's where I'm kind of landing with this film. There's a lot that I would have done differently with it, but I thought there was a lot of really cool twists and turns and surprises, and all the callbacks or throwbacks and the Easter eggs and things like that just kind of bumped up the score quite a bit. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode 71. We're talking all about Halloween 2018 and sort of our review of it, our deep dive, I guess, if you want to call it that. Next week, we'll be back with episode number 72, talking about Halloween Kills, which is going to be really interesting because you and I are not huge fans of that film. We'll get into that a little bit more. Why? If you've watched this show at all, you're going to know why for a lot of those reasons, because we have talked about it. But yeah, man, 2018, can't wait to watch it again this October. Already counting down the days. We're not even that far. We're like 4.5 months away from that. And is it even that far? It might not even be that far. We're like 4 months away from that.
Yeah, 4 months.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It'll be here before we know it. But that's going to do it for this episode of Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. I'm Blaine Duncan, and that is my brother, Austin, and we'll see you guys next week where we talk about Halloween Kills for episode 72. We'll see you then.